Hello, everyone, and welcome to the webcast. My name is Christine Dorsey Davis. I'm the Executive Director of the Ohio chapter of the American Planning Association, and I am your webcast moderator. Today is December 27th, and we will hear New Year, New You, New Staff Report. I'm excited about this one. For technical help during today's webcast, you can type your questions in the Q&A box, and I'll do my best to help you with those. For questions related to the presentation, again, you can type those in the Q&A box, and we'll get to those at the end of the presentation during the Q&A. Up next on your screen is a list of our participating APA chapters and divisions for 2024. Thanks to all those participating members for making these webcasts possible and free to members. And today, we are hosted by the Kansas chapter of APA. They are back again. We had a webcast with you all earlier this year, and coming out of it essentially was a request for this webinar to be created. So we thank you. Next up is our list of upcoming sessions. You can see some of them have some holds on them. We're working through logistics, and we'll get them all posted for you to register for as soon as possible. But there are some that are already up there available. Just head over to ohioplanning.org/planningwebcast, and you'll be able to register for those upcoming sessions. Today's session is worth 1.5 CM credits. You can log your CMs by heading over to planning.org. Log into your My APA account, and from there you can search by today's title or event number, both of which can be found on our website, again, ohioplanning.org/planningwebcast. We will also, so tell your friends, we will also submit this session for distance education. So for folks that were unable to view live today, you can view the recording, and I'm going to get to that, how you do that here. If you're on social media, be sure to like us on Facebook. That's where I post any important date or time changes, when new sessions become available for you to register for, and a weekly reminder of what's on tap for Friday. And we record all of our sessions. We post them onto our YouTube channel. So head over to YouTube and type in Planning Webcast. We'll pop up along with our well over 500 session recordings, all available to you for free. Lastly, a new feature. If you click for that QR code, take a picture with your phone, or just head over to ohioplanning.org/planningwebcast, you can subscribe to our monthly newsletter. It is for anyone, and you'll get an email from me one time a month reminding you of what sessions are available for you to register for the upcoming month. So if you want to get direct communication from me once a month, go ahead and subscribe to our mailing list, and that will start in January. And you can get everything that I said, all the information you need, ohioplanning.org/planningwebcast. With that, I'm turning it over to you, Bonnie Johnson, to kick things off for us.
Well, okay. Let me share my screen. All right. So I hope you're seeing a slide. All right.
Looks good.
Christine is nodding her head. So, welcome. I'm Bonnie Johnson. I am the Professional Development Officer for the Kansas APA chapter. I am also Assistant Director of the School of Public Affairs and Administration at the University of Kansas and Professor of Urban Planning. And let's just get going here. Oh, and that subscribe feature is really great. That's really nice of APA Ohio to offer that so that everyone can stay up to date with these webcasts. So this is New Year, New You, New Staff Report. Let's start off with something new. All right, so even though I'm a former practitioner, I'm now an academic, and so I read these academic things and ran across this article by John Forrester, What Kind of Research Might Help Us Become Better Planners? So in this, this actually is a little editorial piece by Forrester. And it says, again, if we want to understand the possibilities of terrific cooking, in this editorial, he's comparing being a good cook with being a good planner. So again, if we want to understand the possibilities of terrific cooking, we wouldn't study how people cook on average. So we are likely to find that such new methods need to reach far beyond the familiar scope of explanatory social science. We may well find out that if we wish to learn to practice more astutely as we seek justice, beauty, efficiency, if we wish to become better cooks, conventional social science has had us waiting in the bus station for our plane. Little wonder that it hasn't come. So let's think about how to have better planning and be better planners. So we're talking about staff reports. Some cities call them staff memos, but just so that we're all on the same page, generally, staff reports are a record of each application that you get in a city or a county planning office, or any sort of governing agency is going to probably have something that they call a staff report, which is going to record, talk about here's what someone is wanting to do, what the conditions are, what regulations there are, policy, um, guidance from adopted plans, and a synthesis of staff expertise from one or more of the following: planners, engineers, public safety, parks and recreation, city, county attorneys, utilities, public works, economic development, on, depending on staff size and the complexity of the applications, of course. Now, these staff reports then go out to the public, appointed advisory boards, and elected governing boards to make decisions in the public interest. Often these go out regularly, at least once a month, possibly more, depending on how busy of an office you're in. And they are a crucial and main way of communicating with the public and appointed and elected officials. So let's make the most of these things. Our resolutions for the new year. So let's think about what we might want to wish for in a better staff report, in being better planners in the new year. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to make a list. We're going to go shopping. We're going to get creative. We're going to see what Chatty, also known as ChatGPT, has to say. And then we're going to resolve to push planning forward in new directions and to be better. So think about, in one word, what is your main goal for better staff reports? What is your main goal for better staff reports? So word cloud time. All right, let me get my word cloud up here. All right. So Christine, I trust people are seeing the instructions for the word cloud, how to get
Yes.
to it. Yep. So
with your QR code, like just take a picture with your camera, or I'm gonna put it in the chat box too.
oh, good.
The
Yeah. So
join by web.
there's the join by web. There's the QR code. You can text to the number 37607. Bonnie Johnso, it leaves the N off, 617, and put in your one word that describes your main goal for better staff reports. So do some thinking, do some connecting, and hopefully we'll start seeing some responses. And yes, we're getting them. All right. Clarity. Clarity is coming through crystal clear. And then we've got efficiency, transparency, succinct, simplicity, effectiveness. Oh, to have an effective staff report, yes, that would be nice. Simpler, short, timely, quick, informational, Really good. All right, so those are some very good goals, and and I love that clarity is so big there in the middle. Um, so here we go. Let's now get out of here and there we go. I will move that to the side. We'll have some more word clouds as we go along. All right, so we've got your list: clarity, inform, efficient, timely, quick, all of those things. So, what have I heard from planning commissions? So, I have interviewed planning commissions across the country, and here's what they say as to what they're looking for in a staff report. And yes, literally, one of them said, "I'm glad I don't have to write them." So here are some things that they said. They want to know about previous decisions, and one commissioner even called it a chain of custody. Being interesting but not obscuring. Um, Maybe we need to educate the public ahead of time, which I think was an interesting thought. They were curious about any mistakes in the past, feasibility. They're afraid that staff reports can be boring or repetitive, so they don't want that. They do want them to be defensible, well organized. They want to be able to scan through the document very quickly. Um, a lot of getting to the point. And one of them said, there's a kernel of a decision there, and it's not always apparent. They talked about we don't have the benefit of time with the project like staff does. They were appreciative of things like photos and illustrations. So thankfully, not all text. Um, they're wanting to know what can we do and their options. They're wanting the staff report to depict the logic. Why is this the way it is? So pictures, maps, trends, options for motions, the being able to easily find the motion when it's time, and the recommendation, being able to easily find that. But one of the things that really kept coming up was they want to know, they want to have a look inside the black box. What happens between the time of the application and when the commission sees it? They're interested in, were there alternatives pitched? What was talked about? I mean, I think planning commissioners suspect that there's a lot more horse trading and negotiating going on than maybe perhaps there is. Um, but they're just wanting to know, well, what happens? What goes on behind the scenes? And for the staff report to depict that. So there's some things to keep in mind as we talk about improving staff reports. So we've got your shopping list. We've got the Planning Commission shopping list. Let's go shopping. And as the old saying goes, people don't like to be sold, but they love to buy. So here's just, I went looking around on the web, just looking at different staff reports, trying to find little bits and pieces of things that I thought were good. And so here's just some examples of what's out there. So this is from the city of Hutchinson, Kansas. And in this staff report, what I liked was they have kind of the logo of the city and lots of white space. So you can very quickly find different things. There's the request, a little bit about the lot, how big it is, the location, what jurisdiction the board has. So this is for a Board of Zoning Appeals, and they're, kind of saying, here's the powers you have, remember. And they've got like a little map there showing the location. So nice, neat, clean, has some basic information right there on the cover. I also liked that as you got into the staff report, they had an aerial map that again is showing the site. Then they have a very clear zoning map in color with what the different colors mean, very clear. And then there's the future land use map. Again, very clear, showing the location of the site under consideration. So these really do paint a picture of what's going on. Then they have photos of the site from different angles so that you can get a sense of what's there, a 360 view, that kind of thing. So very good. And they've got captions under the photos letting you know what this is. So lots of good information there and very visual. And then they have a little space in the staff report for public comments. So they're showing what they've heard so far from the public. So good information, very transparent. That was one of the things that was on you all's list. And so that's a little example from the city of Hutchinson, Kansas. This is from the city of Olivet, Missouri. Again, I like that they're showing the city's logo and live in Olivet in the center of it all. I mean, having the city logo there, having perhaps a little motto or something, again, it's reminding people this is what we're here for. We're wanting to be the center of it all. And so here they call their staff reports a department memorandum. So the information there, and then they're asking some questions. Why is this before the commission? There's your answer. Is there a site plan review? No, it's not in the code. Primary staff concerns right there on the cover page, stormwater management. So they're talking about, this is one thing that you really want to focus on. It's right there on the cover. They then have a staff summary, little background, the zoning, some of the guidelines. So really nice, and they're kind of asking questions that they know people are going to ask. They're answering them. They're focusing attention on stormwater management is really going to be our issue here. Then inside the staff report, they have a table with their residential redevelopment and design guidelines, whether they meet them. There's a little bit of table. Again, concerns, stormwater management. And you can see, oh, tree preservation's been taken care of. That's, if you're a commissioner that really cares about that, you would focus in on that and go, oh, okay, that's been taken care of. Then they have a little analysis connecting very visibly to their most recent comprehensive plan update, 2024 comprehensive plan update analysis. And they're walking through, these are our major categories of things that we're interested in, and how this application performs on those things. So very clearly connecting to their comprehensive plan. They also, which I thought this was interesting, they're including a copy of the actual application that the applicant filled out. I think this is interesting because sometimes it seems like perhaps the public thinks that the planning staff is coming up with these things and not realizing, oh wait, someone has made an application to do this and the staff is analyzing it And so it's not just like staff all of a sudden decided to rezone a piece of property. So I thought that was interesting. And then also that is letting the Planning Commission in on a little bit of the black box, what goes on in the background. City of Liberty, Missouri. Now, I went looking for staff reports, but I noticed that they regularly, every month, do an activity report for the Department of Planning and Development. And so it talks about the applications that have come through the Planning and Zoning Commission, what happened to them, what's going on with the different commissions that they staff: Arts Commission, Historic District Review Committee, Board of Zoning Adjustment, City Council. And then they're talking about administrative approvals, being very transparent, building permit activity, types of permits, code enforcement activity, and then additional department activity. I mean, so again, this is cracking open that black box for not only planning commissioners, but for city council, the other commissioners, and the public as to what all are these planners doing, and what does it add up to, and what becomes of things that maybe come before the planning commission, what happens at the city council. I thought this was a very good, effective technique of letting people have a peek into what all the office is doing. Glenn County, Georgia. This is a good one where they talk about Planning Commission action. They're kind of listing, here's the different things you can do, and here are possible motions. So they're I don't know if you have seen a planning commission or a city council where they're just stuck for how to make a motion, particularly if, you know, they have decided to do something different than what staff recommends. They'll get stuck. So giving them a little bit of help, um, uh, and here's some possibilities, and also letting them know when it is that they could defer this to a future meeting if they had further questions or concerns. So letting them know their options. City of Calistoga, California. I thought this was very nice because this was part of their website where you could click on development projects in review. So that here's the applications we have, here's the information we have so far, and so residents can get a sense of what's going on before it comes to the planning commission or before a staff report's written. They can kind of see what's going on. I thought that was a good option. City of Topeka, Kansas. So on the far left is their cover page. They've got basic information. They've got a view of the site. The next page, some other photos of the site, their recommendation. So they're giving the recommendation real early on in the staff report instead of waiting to the end, and even having a recommended motion there early on. Then they're getting into the other factors. And they're saying, here are the review comments by city departments and external agencies. Again, here's a view inside that black box of what all went on. Then they get into staff analysis. I did like that they listed some key dates when it was submitted, when there was a neighborhood information meeting. So it looks like Topeka requires some sort of neighborhood information meeting ahead of time that the applicant would have. When that happened, the legal notice publication, property owner notice mailed. Transparency, here's what's going on. The city of Linden, Utah, I thought this was an interesting example, again, where they've got some basic information on the cover page. They've got the motion. a summary of key issues. So again, they're focusing in on this is something that as your staff, we're seeing that this is a key issue. Pay attention to this. Then they're giving an overview. This is a case that had gone to the city council and now it's coming back to the planning commission. And I liked that they had the YouTube link there that if you wanted to go look at what the city council said, and they're even telling you it starts at minute 23:25. So showing you, hey, this is what the city council said. Now we're looking at this again. City of Staten, Oregon. So they also have a memo versus a staff report. They're starting out with what the issue is. They've got a picture of the site, giving you background, and then on the next page is their analysis, their recommendations. Again, options and suggested motions. It's empowering that planning commission so that they know what some options are. Next up, City of Austin, Texas, in their staff report, they have their Imagine Austin decision guidelines. I imagine that Imagine Austin is their comprehensive plan. And so they've got a table with their main guidelines and their measures, and they're saying, do they meet these? They've got some Y's for yeses. Then they've got some blank spaces of maybe some places where it's not hitting, and then they're totaling up the number of yeses. They also had this pilot program, which they were testing, and I don't know whether they went ahead with this or not, but public hearing information, they're saying we're doing this pilot program to receive case-related comments online. They give you a QR code, and then someone was able to scan that and then submit, I'm in favor or I object. And then they were able to include that in the staff report. So I thought that was an interesting option for collecting public comments. Here's an example from Johnson County, Kansas. And what I liked in this one was that on the left, we're zoomed in on the site, and they're kind of illustrating it. They're telling us what the different things are with some arrows and things. And then as they go through the staff report, they start zooming out. So you've zoomed out to the adjacent area and then zoomed out further, showing more of the context. So this is really letting you get an up-close view and then the larger context. I thought that was good. So that was just me going and poking around some different cities' websites, looking for staff reports and noting some things that caught my attention. So back to Forrester wanting us to be better cooks, better planners. And so he says the premise here then is that neither planners nor accomplished cooks have already become as good as they will ever be. They can do better, no doubt, but how can we study the possibilities of what they have not yet accomplished? Notice that most likely we would not just do a survey of existing practices to find out what ordinary or typical or some normal practice of planning or cooking would be already. We're not looking for the average case after all. We're trying to learn about discovery and innovation, about how to do better. So Forrester is saying, like what we just did, let's just look at what's out there, isn't good enough. We need to imagine what we could do better. So what else could we do? How could we come up with something new? Think about how we could do staff reports better, perhaps things we haven't thought about yet, and that we can create the new and improved standard, the new and improved template. So Where else can we look? Well, let's get creative. And the avant-garde art movement, uh, thank you very much. They said we're all artists. We all can do this. So the Dadaists said, you know, uh, we don't want to just leave it up to galleries and art critics to say what art is. We all can be artists. So they kind of threw down the walls and are like, yeah, we all can be creative. So this is one of the early Dadaists, avant-garde artist, Marcel Duchamp, and he created these pieces of art that he called ready-mades. And this one, he stuck a bicycle wheel on a stool. There you go. It's art. He also was well known for in 1917 at a major exhibition of art, um, putting on display a urinal and calling it Fountain. So we can be creative too. So we're looking for a staff report that is not a staff report. And here's another avant-garde piece of art by Rene Magritte called This Is Not a Pipe. And his point was, if somebody said, oh, that's a pipe, he would say, well, you can't stuff tobacco in it, so it's not a pipe, is it? Is it not a pipe? No, it's not a pipe. So can we have a staff report that is not a staff report? Let's see. So put on your thinking caps. Here's another Dadaist artist known for poetry. This is Hugo Ball at the Cabaret Voltaire in 1916. So all of this is happening in 1916, 1917. It's after World War I, when the world just seemed to be just turned upside down. And people were wondering what it was to be human. What do we have in common? How do we come out of this time of worldwide violence? And and so these new artists, avant-garde art, Dadaists, were saying, you know, let's come out of this. We can be creative. We can reconnect. We can think differently. So put on your thinking caps, and I'll try to give us some inspiration for thinking differently about staff reports. This is you're seeing the outside of the Spencer Museum of Art here on the campus of the University of Kansas in Lawrence, Kansas. And this is a piece of art. It's a series of 5 signs that are outside of the museum called Native Host. It's by Edgar Heap of Birds. And you'll notice that the word Kansas is flipped backwards. And so it's flipped backwards and it says, today your host is Iowa. Another sign says, today your host is Kaw. Today your host is Potawatomi. The artist is wanting us to think differently about what Kansas means, what it means to be on this land, and who is your host. We've heard all about when you're at an event indicating the lands that you are on that were originally inhabited by indigenous peoples, Native Americans. Well, this is trying to get us to really think about this and to think about, well, what is Kansas? What did Kansas come from? Who is our host? And by flipping the word Kansas backwards, it does something in your brain to where it makes you stop for a second and think, well, what is this? And what is this artist trying to say? And what are we saying? So um, trying to get us open to and jumpstart some creative thinking. So I tried this technique with the planning commissions to get them to think differently about staff reports. And one of the planning commissioners, actually the chair of one of the planning commissions, just was like dismissive of using art in this way. But he did actually say something that really struck me. He said, I think this was helpful for you. And I thought, you're right. Me using art to think about staff reports did give me a different way of thinking, a different handle on what it is that a staff report was all about. And so I'm hoping that by showing you some connections between art and staff reports, it will jumpstart your thinking about how we can have a staff report that is not a staff report. So let's give this a try. So as planners, we always know we're trying to balance things. And particularly now, talking about sustainability, we're always trying to balance economy, ecology, equity. And as planners, we've always been balancing the different values of a community, community rights, private rights. So we're always trying to balance something, it seems like. And that made me think of mobiles. And this one is called The Spinner by Alexander Calder. It's in Minneapolis. Actually took this picture when I was there for the National Planning Conference when it was in Minneapolis. So, a staff report that balances. All right. So I thought, well, what if I were to create a staff report that was a mobile, quite literally balancing things? What would I start with, and how would I keep them in balance? So I thought about like a particular staff report for a particular application. And I thought, well, what is it that we're deciding about? And I thought, and what's going to balance? So I thought about, well, oftentimes people either want things to stay the same, don't change. I want it to be this way. Or they want it to go back to the past, the good old days. Um, so those are what we often hear. I want to stay the same, or I want to go back to the past. But then we have our future land use plan, our comprehensive plan that says, well, this is what we want this to be in the future. So those are three options. And then the fourth option is what the application is, what the person today is wanting to change. So I started at the top with, well, we've got the past, we've got the present, we've got what the applicant wants, and we've got what the community wants in the comprehensive plan, the future land use plan. So we've got those things balancing. Now, how are we going to decide amongst these four options? And that's when I thought about this work. It's in the book Site Planning and Community Design for Great Neighborhoods by Jarvis. And I always liked this image of where you're trying to find your way through, well, I want separation, privacy, but I also want convenience. That means proximity. Ooh, I want variety, diversity, and choice, but there's comfort in unity, harmony, sameness. Um, I want new things, innovation, experimentation, but tradition and history are important. And so this is a good way of thinking about, like, well, where are we landing? Are we landing more on convenience or more on separation, and what is that going to get us? And so the mobile starts off with, we have these 4 things we're deciding about. We're going to filter those through these different qualities of a desirable place. There's even affordability and luxury. Where do we fit in there? And how do we include everybody? One thing that Jarvis doesn't get at is maybe balancing gray infrastructure and green infrastructure. So the environment isn't in here, which I would add in. Then, okay, so you're again balancing all these different things. You're then filtering through the values that the community has. Things like accountability, sustainability, social justice, diversity, efficiency, whatever it is that is important for your community. And then you're filtering down to a decision at the bottom. So this exercise of trying to turn a staff report into a piece of art, into a mobile, really made me concentrate on, well, what's going to go into that decision and how do I illustrate that? So let's try another. So this is another piece that is at the Spencer, this is at the Spencer Museum of Art, called The Path of Thought, by Nacho Rodriguez Bach. And you start on this path, you walk along, and there's kind of different things to think about as you walk along. Things about, where does altruism come from? What are you conscious about? Um, uh, that conscience can grow, and altruism exists because we believe it. And it's taking you through a path of thinking about our place in the world as individuals and as a collective. And actually what I thought about in this exercise was, gosh, wouldn't it be interesting if something like this was on the floor of the lobby leading up to the Planning Commission chambers or the City Commission chambers, that it's leading people through, okay, we've come here as individuals, and as we head towards this forum space, we're going to come together as a community. I don't know. Uh, I just like that idea of trying to get people to think about how that we actually do have to make decisions together in a democracy. And that's what the path of thought made me think of. So as far as staff reports are concerned, I thought about, well, how do we get to there? How do we get to making a decision together? And that's where I thought about, well, could a staff report be a poster that's in the lobby of City Hall or public library or online, that people can quickly look at, but particularly look at that night of the meeting. So maybe while people are waiting for their item to come up, they can go take a look at the staff report. There it is on a poster. Get some, find out a little bit more about it so that they are really prepared for when it's time to speak. So staff report as a poster, you put up ahead of time, put up for people to look at while they're waiting for their item to come up on the agenda. Maybe think about a staff report as a game board. Like, how do you win this game? So in this image at the top, we have the context going from left to right, west to east, and the star is right where the site is that's being considered. And so you can kind of see this site is at a major intersection. There's a Best Buy nearby. There's a Home Depot nearby. Here's our site. Also next to it is a park, neighborhood, and an elementary school. So here's our context. Now, what is going to win out to go in where that star is? Well, our criteria. Our land use plan says we should have commercial in nodes. We should avoid strip commercial. Ooh, things like limestone and red brick are important in our community. Oh, there's mature trees on the site. That's important, tree preservation. Oh my gosh, this site drains to a wetlands. So how are we going to play these pieces to win the game? We have these options of sticking to the past, present, the future plan, the application, something else. How are we going to play these pieces to get what we want as a community? All right, here's another piece of art. This is again at the Spencer Museum of Art. It's called Around the Cake by Wayne Tebu. I like this image because it's like, ah, what if we could have our cake and eat it too? Just have the staff report that satisfies everybody. Oh, dream come true. This actually is a staff report made by one of my students where they took the Wayne Tebu image and made it into a staff report. And all the pieces come together to create a whole. And if you peek under the icing, there's the little details about how to bring this together. So piecing together, it really is, it's more than planning and zoning. Let's use some good ingredients, kind of, foresters trying to make us think about being good cooks. So it's more than planning and zoning. It's code enforcement. Code enforcement is going to address some of those fears people have about, oh my gosh, my property values. Also, code enforcement, if you let people know you're coming, hey, neighborhood, this week we're going to be coming with code enforcement, get ready. Or, hey, in this neighborhood, we're going to be coming through doing uh, uh, rental housing inspections, get ready. Engineering standards. That's going to set the basic infrastructure, gray to green infrastructure. The capital improvement plan or program. Those are the plans that are going to have like big ticket items where we're going to take a leap, where we're really leaping into the future. I recently read this book about Octavia Butler, the science fiction writer of Kindred and other books, and it's called A Handful of Earth, A Handful of Sky. And in this book, The World of Octavia Butler, it talks about what she did to become a successful author. And she made plans for herself, and she described those plans as ways of preparing to make the leap. And I love that image of a plan that it's going to prepare us for the leap. So think about using plans in that way. I think capital improvement plans in particular are where you take a leap. Planning commission training. Train the planning commission to do active listening. So active listening, how that would occur for a planning commission would be if you have an item that is generating a lot of public input at the public hearing, have the planning commission, have the chair of the planning commission, have, maybe 5, 8, there's a lot of people, 10 people speak, have either people on the planning commission or a staff member making a list of what it is that people are saying. and that list being up on a screen or flip chart. And after 8 or 10 people, the chair of the planning commission saying, okay, here's what we've heard so far, reading off the list. Then you can proceed with 5 or 8 more people. If they're adding new things, list those. And then stop. Have the planning commission, the chair, say, okay, this is what we've heard. We're hearing these things. Those of you out in the audience that think this is important, item number 2, do you think that's important? Please raise your hand. Number 3, do you think that's important? So that the planning commission is showing the participants at the meeting, the citizens, in real time, we are listening to you and we have heard you. That helps with transparency. It helps people in the audience know that they're being heard. Sometimes I think those meetings where it's one person after the other with the same sorts of complaints, part of it is the planning commission isn't letting people know that they heard them. So, well, I'd better go up and repeat again that this is important because I don't know if they heard me or they heard that other person or know how important it is. So train the planning commission in active listening so that everybody feels like they're being heard. Look out for grants. I was thinking of grants as concentrated goodness. Those little things that you can get that just can infuse good, particularly in ways that are a helping hand. And maybe help fund helping hand days, volunteer days, repair things. Public safety, from noise to neighbors. Here being in a college town, it is such a big deal about, oh my gosh, those students might live nearby and there might be noisy, or they might have a landlord that doesn't care about the property. Well, use code enforcement, use, some responding to noise complaints so that you're attending to those things. And it's not just, oh, we have to rely on zoning to restrict the number of people that live at a house. Sanitation, household hazardous waste, regular cleanup days in different parts of the city. Homeless services, refuge when it's needed, and just good management. So having the city organization, nonprofits, the public, businesses working together to have good follow through, and then that's going to lead to more trust. So think about all these different things in your system of a good community that you can rely on, that you can talk about in staff reports, more than just planning and zoning. So when making plans, think staff report. So what if it's not goals and objectives? There, I said it, or at least thought it. Maybe what we've been doing all these years of doing plans that are goals and objectives aren't as effective as we would want. Maybe think about when you're doing a plan, think about how this is going to manifest itself in a staff report. How are you going to use this to analyze applications? Is it going to be goals, objectives, policies? Is it going to be that it was or wasn't on the community's top 10 list? Is it going to be that yes or no, it adheres to these community principles? Is it going to be yes or no, or maybe it fits in with our core values? Let's think about it. Does it help further our origin story? I ran across the concept of an origin story in Braiding Sweetgrass and was talking about very simple origin stories and how that makes a difference as to what happens. Um, for example, in the book, Robin Wall Kimmerer talks about that a boy's origin story is a boy raised by a river. Boy, doesn't that just say a lot about who that boy is and who he is, what made him who he is today? I think there was a city in the past that was the city that reads. Now, gosh, isn't that just a very basic way of thinking about, well, is what we're doing today going to maintain or get us to be the city that reads? For myself, my origin story would be raised by a downtown. I grew up in a town with an amazing downtown, and look what I'm doing now. So, or think origin stories. Think what we believe. Um, a checklist. Does this check off multiple items on our checklist? Whatever it is, what connects with your community? It might be goals and objectives, or might be something else that might be more effective, that is more of a touchstone for your community, that is going to help you have a better staff report and get you a better community down the line. Here's a staff report that's a collage, different layers, trying to get everything all in one view. What's going on here? Wow, here we go. And I even have at the top the name, the top left, hello, my name is, who the staff member is that put this together. And note, this staff member is AICP. What is that? And so everything's all there, and it's interchangeable where you can move your little green tag or yellow tag or red tag around to what's going good, what's a maybe, what's a no, where that red tag is, that kind of thing. So one pagers for quick reference. So think collage, think what you can get on one page that will let people know what this is all about. Not that that's all there is to the staff report, but that you're boiling it down to something that people can digest easily and quickly. And then you've got more specifics later on. But thinking about maybe a contentious issue and what's going on, and perhaps a lot of people showing up for a planning commission meeting, having those one pagers out again in the lobby for quick reference for people so they know a little bit more of what's going on, that there's more to it than perhaps the headline that was in the newspaper or in the blog post or what they heard um, uh, around town. So getting those one pagers in people's hands, particularly at the meeting before their item comes up on the agenda. Now, I tried creating an ebook to see if what that would be like. And I'm not sure that it was the greatest in the world. But, you know, I gave it a try. You can even record your voice and click on it, and the planner will tell you about it. You can have photos, links, some sort of visualization. You can listen to the audio of the staff's recommendation, options, and then where to give feedback. I don't know. This particular ebook was really hard and time consuming to do, but maybe this will spark some thinking. And so thinking about technology and thinking about what planning commissioners suggested, which is having things to educate the public ahead of time, maybe videos or podcasts for educating people just about planning in general, particular topics, that kind of thing. So take a second. Hopefully, fingers crossed, this sparked some inspiration. So maybe we're ready for another word cloud. So think about, in one keyword, what insight did you have from perhaps thinking about a staff report that is not a staff report? What do you think? Oh, music. Ah, that's interesting. Accessibility, images, visual. Ah, being creative. Yes. Pictures, variety, making it interesting. Educate, TikTok, sound, just different. GIFs. Oh, I I see the useless in there. I heard that from the planning commissioners. Yes. Um, Legality. But so just remember that even if you're doing something that's a little unusual, you can have underlying that all of your usual backup information, further information that people can drill down into that satisfy perhaps a judge someday if you're taken to court on an issue or something like that. But just modernizing things. Uh, Having that special something. Okay, great. Symbols. Oh, and avoiding trickery. That is a good segue into the next part here, which is speaking of innovations or things that could get produced that are not quite right. What does Chatty have to say? Chat GPT, what's going on with that? So I took a look at the report using generative AI to draft zoning codes available from the American Planning Association and thought, I could take the things that Norman Wright was talking about in terms of using Chat GPT to draft zoning codes, that could be applied to staff reports. And I bet a lot of you are already experimenting with this. Wright says that think of Chat GPT as something like a word calculator. So it's going to take a word or words that you put in and look for, well, what's next? What usually comes next? So to get Chatty to really help you, you'll need to become a good prompt engineer. And in that report, Wright tells us how to become better prompt engineers. You can start off with a single standalone command. You'll get a better response if you turn that into a question. You'll get an even better response if you have a conversation with Chatty. Another type of prompt is a persona pattern. So have Chatty think like an AICP planner. See what Chatty would say. audience persona pattern. So what persona should Chatty have, and who is Chatty's audience? Is it someone with a 8th grade education? Someone with a PhD? You can also work with Chatty to flip the interaction and have Chatty ask you questions that people might ask. Then you can have a template that works with your prompts that then Chatty will put things into a template. You also have to create a workspace where you're feeding Chatty what information you want it to rely on. Your community's plans, your community's ordinances, past staff reports, things like that. Which it sounds like all of this working with Chatty sounds similar to me like the good reasons approach, where you're looking for, well, what's the reason? And this is where show your expertise. Chatty isn't going to always have the expertise, and Chatty may have the exact wrong expertise, particularly for your community. So show your expertise. Cite your sources, answer the why question, use plans, use research, use stories, use experiences. Evaluate. How did that application in the past work out, and what lessons learned are there for today? How is the code working out? How is the plan working out? Have your good workspace of the things that you're going to rely on. Maybe it's something from visualizing density. Maybe it's something from the high cost of free parking. Maybe it's something from the Journal of the American Planning Association. Maybe it's from Planning Advisory Service reports. Have all of those things at your fingertips. So wait, Chatty, I asked for an image of a planning commission. Literally, this is what Chatty came up with when I asked it for an image of a planning commission. So beware of Chatty. But how about asking your planning commission, what is it that you want? And have a conversation with them. Have some group reflective practice. Gather the team, your staff, your planning commission. You're in this together. Ask, listen, share your experiences, and listen to their experiences when it comes to staff reports. What does your community want for the future? So, any new New Year's resolutions for you and your staff reports? One more word cloud. Oh, well, Chatty thinks a word cloud is a stack of newspapers, so Chatty suggested this image. But I think we're thinking of maybe some other things, Chatty. So let's see here. Let's do your one word resolution for staff reports is what? Let's do one more word cloud here and wrap things up. Brevity, simplify, structure. Balance, nothing, I'm sorry. Reform, detail. Visuals, rethink. Engagement, fun. Listen. I think if we don't take anything else about from today, that listening to ourselves, listening to our communities, listening to our planning commissions, I think all of those things are going to be helpful. And so let's wrap this up. Are you ready to catch that plane or bus? That's good too. Let's go. All right. Questions? comments? What have you got?
Hi. All right. I am pulling up my screens here. Um,
And Christine, do I need to stop sharing or?
you can, because then
Okay.
our heads will be bigger on the screen. So that's helpful.
Okay.
So,
Well,
first question, just to kind of level set us here. Um, do we feel like there should be that we should take different things into consideration when it comes to staff reports if we're working with if our audience is city council versus a planning commission versus a true citizen board, and what are those considerations that we should take into account? Like, for example, a citizen board. I sit on a citizen board and I happen to be a planner, and I still have questions mostly about the legalese and
yeah.
what is our authority, and can you remind me what the code says so I don't have to look it up. But what are the different things that we should take into account depending on our audience?
Yeah, I think that if you do think about a staff report where and I think somebody listed this on their list with structure. So if you have a structure, a typical structure for your staff reports, where the person that wants to know the exact legal uh, verbiage, they know where to find that in the report. Where if you have someone that it's like, well, what even is this commission about? What is your jurisdiction? They can find that. Um, and now with so many things that can be online and that you can click around, that makes it easier. But if you can kind of by talking to your boards and your commissions and find out what it is that they regularly want to see made like really clear and easy to find, that can set up your structure. And never fear, there's plenty of space out there in computer land. I mean, now we don't have to be quite so cognizant of killing trees and having lots of pages to sort through, um, because you can link to things. Um, so, providing that legal basis for anything that might go wrong, you never know. You can do that, but you can have things very structured, easy to find, and answering the things that your particular board, commission, council really cares about. And that might change from council to council. So having your regular group reflective practice where you're talking with your boards about what it is that you're doing, the work that you're doing, and is it serving their needs?
Um, this is a good one. Oh, before we get into that question, there's one thing, we're talking about chatty and chat GPT or GTP or XYZ. Um, I just wanted to mention in our last webinar, no, 2 webinars ago, it was the annual ethics cases of the year and all that done by the APA Ethics Committee. And one of the things that they are going to be focusing in on this next calendar year is all about AI and the ethics of AI, the ethics
Mm-hmm.
of chat GTP. And there were a ton of questions about, can I create like a staff report or like even the minutes after a report? Like, can
Mm-hmm.
chat GTP do that?
Yeah. Yeah.
So again, just flagging that for everyone
Mm-hmm.
um,
Well,
coming up
and
because
that's where,
it's so integral now with
yeah,
everything. But
yeah,
how far can you go?
yeah. Well, and it can save time. And you can like use it for the minutes of a meeting. Um, but you have to check it. I mean, you have to read over stuff before you put it out there. But with students, they will use Chat GPT to create like a reference list of
Mhm.
citations. Chatty will make stuff up. You will go to find that citation,
It doesn't exist.
it doesn't exist. So that's where, the warning, I mean, that's where we're still important.
Right?
Because
Do your due diligence.
Chatty doesn't know,
Right.
and Chatty doesn't know your community.
Right. Um, so a couple of, I love how you named Chatty. A couple of questions that I think will resonate well with everyone. I am curious about how to best handle staff reports to City Council when the Planning Commission recommends counter to the staff. Do you provide potential resolutions? So obviously they know ahead of time that um, the commission and staff are at odds. So what are your thoughts on what a staff report would look like in that case?
Yeah. So when I was a young planner, I was taught that you are the staff of the Planning Commission. And so if the Planning Commission recommends something counter to what you recommend, when you appear before the City Council, the Planning Commission recommendation becomes your recommendation. So there's that. But there is the City Council should have your original staff report. And if you do make it clear on the staff report the different options and what your recommendation is, even though there's that cover on top of it with the minutes from the Planning Commission meeting and the Planning Commission's recommendation, the City Council can easily get to, well, where did we start? What was it that staff said? So it's there. And that's where I think that good one pager can really come in handy, particularly for things like that.
So follow-up question in here. What if the commission or boards or city council, what if they don't read the staff reports and they come in blind every time and it's just a disaster? I guess my answer would be, just based on this, we need to be more creative. But I guess, especially I'm
Yeah,
sure people are rolling their eyes, like, with what time
yeah,
can I be
yeah,
creative? So
yeah, yeah,
do you have
yeah,
any words of wisdom
yeah,
when you know that you're just going to shake your head every time
yeah,
they
yeah,
gather together?
yeah. Well, and I mean, that's where that one pager, that cover page is your best friend. Um, and where you're saying, here's the issue, or here's, like when it's like affordability, that's the issue, and we're going to put it there. Or this type of development will not uh, pay for itself in the long run, or this development will mean that we won't be able to have this street connected. I mean, having that one page and pointing out, here's something that's very important. And so that, you know, and if you have a commissioner that won't even look at one page, there's some more issues going on there, and that would be a really good conversation with the planning commission about how are things working for you? How can we make sure that you're well prepared? Well, let's talk about this.
For sessions that will require a vote or some type of action, do you recommend that staff reports always include a recommendation?
Now this is my, like, planners claim your expertise. Yes, a recommendation. Yes. You're the people that think about this day in and day out. You have training, you have experience, you've done your research, you've seen things. Recommend. But I know there are planning commissions out there are boards and commissions out there that they're like, back off. This is our decision. We don't want that. Yes, but then have that discussion every now and then. You guys realize we're your staff and we know stuff. Um, we can give you a recommendation. We can not have a recommendation, but give you some good reasons or point you in a good direction. I mean, really, I do keep coming back to talk to your planning commission. Um, Talk to them about what it is you do, who you are. Tell your story. Let them know what it is you got going on. You know stuff.
Thank you. So, a couple questions. Um, let's talk about ADA accessibility inclusion. So, how do we balance our staff reports to include those elements?
Yeah, so it is easier today, particularly when you have software or Adobe Suite that will give you directions on how to add a caption for an image that is readable by a reader. That ebook that I made had where it would read the document to somebody. So there's a lot more technology now today to make that easier. So having the readable caption that describes what something is, um, having it accessible in the way of that it can be read aloud, things like that. And that's where I think, you know, maybe having some sort of podcast or recording of what the staff reports are that is available ahead of time might not be a bad idea.
If your organization already has an established report or agenda summary outline that is utilized, and based on the question, I assume that they're not interested in changing that up, how can you do you suggest adding supplements or exhibits or I guess links to other things to make it more interesting and
Yeah,
relevant
yeah.
and
Well, and that's where the thing is that it's becoming common kind of software packages or databases that you're feeding information to that are creating the reports that then go to the city council. And boy, that can hem you in to where you're not being very creative or accessible or transparent to people for that matter. So it may be that you do have to create some sort of supplementary report that you can put a link in, a link to your one pager, so that you can still fit into those, be sucked into those systems, but yet you're still being helpful to people.
I think the answer to this next question is going to be that one page summary, but I'm kind of smushing a couple questions together here. And really, what it is, how do we balance being concise while also being thorough? And then another question brings up, like, can I include direct either verbiage or links to the code, the ordinance, like in question, and whether or not it fully complies, partially complies, and then what links so that if a commissioner wants to look in more detail they can, but then that really weighs down the staff report. So I guess where's the
Yeah,
balance? And I'm
yeah.
gonna assume you're gonna say that summary page is the balance, but talk to us
Well,
about balancing the information.
yeah, yeah. I think the summary page, I think links, I think being able to summarize, and that's where I think things like checklists or tables really come in handy because you can have the table about tree preservation ordinance. This didn't do X. And then there's the link to the tree preservation ordinance if somebody wants to go deeper. But as you develop this rapport with your planning commission and they realize that you've got something going on, then there's a little bit more trust in the summary or the table, but they can trust yet verify. Um, you can have, here's our analysis, and then there's the link to the part of the code. So, you know, you don't have to trust us. You can go and verify that this is what it says.
I know a lot of boards and commissions have folks that aren't as able to be on the internet or move around the internet to get to the code or
Yeah.
to get to links off of staff reports. I know a lot of people that print everything out and they want a big
Yep.
stack of paper.
Yep.
And while that's not my jam, I mean, you do you. So
Yep.
how do we
Yep.
accommodate those folks? Like, do
Yeah.
you have just physical copies of the code or the ordinance available at the meetings for someone to flip through if they want to, or printouts? Like, how do you accommodate those board members, commission members that just don't do the internet?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they're there.
Yeah. Well, and back in the day when someone would come in to be trained for the planning commission, they would get the plan and the documents and they would leave with their stack of notebooks. You can still do that. You can also have there, wherever the commission is meeting, there are the notebooks, can be pulled out. If there's anything that is of particular complication or particular verbiage that needs to be referred to regularly, I am all for taking that out of the code, laminating it, and it's there on the desk. And then the commissioners can go, what is that C2 again? Oh, okay, yeah, all right. So if there's things in particular that seem to always trip people up, like what is it that we do for special use permits? Where's that laminated sheet? It's like, oh, it's right there. So you can balance those things.
Yeah. Listen, we still have quite a few questions, but based on what my clock says, we got to wrap up
Yeah.
here. So if you didn't get your question answered, you can email me and I can send it along to Bonnie. And then she can take it from there. My email's at info@ohioplanning.org. Don't forget to log those CM credits. Just head over to our website and you can get the CM number or the name. You can search. Sometimes the CM portal is funky with searching, so you might need to try more than one method. And don't forget to register for upcoming sessions. I actually just posted several. So I think we have 8 sessions going for the start of 2025. Don't forget to subscribe so that you get an email once a month reminding you of what we got going on. Bonnie, thank you for joining us. And thank you to APA Kansas for hosting today. And hey, everyone, have a great rest of your day. Have a great weekend. And we will see you in 2025. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.